Okay, let's just dive right into this. If you're tuning into this explainer, there's a really good chance you've dealt with it. That annoying, lingering, completely frustrating joint pain that flares up when you're just trying to stay active. For years, we've kind of just accepted achy, clicky joints as, the normal cost of doing business in the gym. But what if you've been blaming the totally wrong suspect this whole time? Today, we're going to solve this joint pain mystery once and for all, and I'm going to lay out the exact protocol to physically rebuild those joints in just 30 days. Let's go. So let's tackle the big question first. Why do your joints actually click and ache? When you've got that chronic pain that just refuses to leave, the hidden culprit actually isn't your muscles, and it isn't your bones. It's your tendons. Seriously, tendon issues are the absolute #1 cause of pain when people train. To get why this happens, you gotta think of your tendons as these thick, heavy-duty cables that power your body's movement. Whether you're curling a dumbbell, driving a heavy bench press, or swinging a tennis racket, those cables are taking the brunt of the force. But here's the thing. Creating movement, that's really only half their job. Take a look at this quote here from Coach Q. He's a physiotherapist who has spent his career studying tendons in pro athletes. He points out something super crucial. When you jump down a couple of stairs and land on both feet, you absolutely do not want your muscle taking all of that load. Think about looking at a really high-quality photo of a sprinter mid-stride or a basketball player right as they hit the floor. You can practically see the insane mechanical forces rippling through their legs. Your tendons act as these brilliant protective shock absorbers. They stretch out incredibly fast in a fraction of a second to protect the muscle from tearing. But because they're taking all that shock, they have to be just absurdly strong. And right here is where we hit a massive physiological roadblock. Lifting weights is obviously amazing for building your muscles, right? But your tendons actually need a completely different kind of training stimulus. They respond differently. See, when you train hard, your muscles adapt and grow way, way faster than your tendons do. So if your training is packing on muscle quickly, but your tendons are just lagging behind, you create this really dangerous strength gap. It's literally like dropping a massive supercharged engine into a race car, but leaving the thin, frayed brake cables. Now, if you're thinking, oh, this is just a beginner's problem. No way. Check out this number, 70%. 70% of all professional sports injuries are related to the tendon or to a mismatch between the tendon and the muscle it connects to. These are pro athletes, people with the absolute best coaches and the most advanced recovery tools on the planet, and even they are constantly falling victim to this exact muscle-tendon strength gap. To really paint a picture of how wild this gap can get, let's look back at 1990s professional baseball. We all know this was the infamous steroid era, right? Players were using gear and their muscle growth just absolutely exploded, massively outpacing what their tendons could naturally handle. They'd build these huge, insanely strong muscles, their performance would skyrocket, and then, bang, a tendon would just snap. It became so incredibly predictable that statisticians can literally look back at the historical data now and make super accurate guesses about who was on the juice just based on when their tendons blew out. Wild, right? But look, you definitely don't need to be taking steroids for this dangerous gap to happen to you. Even if you aren't in agonizing pain just yet, your body is probably giving you warning signs that your cables are getting weak. It comes down to this concept called the chubby tendon. Have you ever heard a loud clicking or popping in your shoulder or your knee? Well, when a tendon gets sensitive and irritated, it actually swells up a bit. It literally gets fatter. It becomes a chubby tendon. So especially in a tight joint like the shoulder, you're forcing this slightly swollen, chubby cable to slide back and forth through a really narrow space. That gross popping and rolling sound, that is quite literally the chubby tendon squeezing and catching on a gap that's just too small for it now. Now, a click here or there isn't always a complete disaster, but when that clicking brings pain with it, you're in trouble. And this brings us to the absolute most frustrating part of this whole explainer. When you go to a regular doctor with this kind of pain, what's the very first thing they tell you? Just rest it. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. This is a total myth, and it's actually one of the worst possible things you can do for a damaged tendon. A tendon isn't a tendon without load. If you completely rest it, it is never ever going to fix itself. Let's actually walk through exactly why resting is such a massive trap. If you were watching a medical animation of this cycle inside the body, you'd see it play out exactly like this. Step 1, you rest. And yeah, the pain temporarily fades away because you aren't poking the bear. Feels like a win, right? Actually, scratch that, it's a disaster. Step 2, because there is zero load, the healthy parts of your tendons start losing their strength. Step 3, the damaged, messy parts never get the biological signal they need to rebuild. And finally, step 4, the second you go back to your normal routine in the gym, the pain instantly comes back because you didn't fix a single thing. This cycle is absolutely brutal, especially for active adults hitting their 40s. We don't just magically bounce back anymore. We have to actively fix the damage. So if resting it is a total bust, what actually works? Well, before we jump into the cure, we have to stop making mistake number 1, poor load management. A lot of people call tendonitis an overuse injury. That's totally backward. It's actually an underprepared injury. It happens when you just spike your activity out of nowhere, like deciding to run 10 miles when you usually run 2. Your body feels fine in the moment, but because tendons are so slow to adapt, a couple of weeks later, snap, something gives. The golden rule you need to memorize here is 30%. If you bump up your training volume or your intensity by more than 30% at once, you are virtually guaranteeing an injury. Say you usually do 4 sets of bench press a week, and you suddenly jump on a crazy program doing 10 sets, that is a recipe for disaster. A safe 30% jump is adding maybe 1 or 2 sets a week tops. You have to give those stubborn tendons the time they need to adapt.
Which leads us right into mistake number 2, using momentum. We've all been there. You get tired, ego takes over, and suddenly you're aggressively bouncing the bar off your chest or swinging heavy dumbbells. That momentum introduces the exact type of violent, sudden load that absolutely wrecks connective tissue. Okay, so we know what ruins tendons, and we know resting them is a myth. How do we actually fix them? Look at this incredible quote from Dr. Keith Barr. He runs a lab that produces some of the most highly cited tendon research in the world. He says, tendons don't like what muscle likes to get stronger. This is the pivot point right here. To heal a tendon, we have to completely flip our approach and use a very specific, honestly kind of weird type of exercise. And here is the secret sauce. Listen to me closely, because this is the exact proven cure for healing and rebuilding those achy joints. Isometric exercise. An isometric is just any exercise where you are contracting a muscle as hard as you can, but you don't actually move. Imagine doing a bicep curl, but you just freeze your elbow totally locked at a 90-degree angle and squeeze. Zero movement, just pure static tension. The research is crystal clear. This exact type of hold is the master key to unlocking tendon healing.
Why this works sounds like magic, but it is pure physiology. It all relies on a biological concept called creep. Imagine a 3D animation inside your joint right now. As you hold that static tension, the healthy parts of the tendon pull and lengthen just a tiny bit. As they do, that load visibly transfers down the line, moving from the strong parts all the way into the weakest, most scarred, damaged, dead zones of the tissue. By simply holding that tension, you're forcing a signal into the whole tendon, triggering your body to lay down fresh collagen and physically rebuild that tissue completely in line. It's absolutely incredible.
So let's make this highly practical. You want to pick an isometric hold that mimics whatever movement is causing you pain. If bench pressing is what's destroying your shoulder, set up a chest press machine or a push-up and just hold that midway position under heavy tension. If your elbow is screaming during curls, hold a heavy bicep curl right in the middle. Knee pain, drop into a wall sit or hold a heavy leg extension machine steady. You are basically hunting for that specific sensitive motion, freezing right there and loading it up statically.
Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. Ugh, isn't it going to hurt to put a heavy load on an already injured joint? Here is the rule you must follow. You probably will feel some pain during the hold, and that is actually 100% okay. As long as it stays around a 3 or a 4 out of 10 on the pain scale, you are totally safe. The real test is tomorrow. If your joint doesn't feel worse the next day, you nailed it. You're in the perfect sweet spot for healing. If it does feel a bit worse, no big deal. Just back off the weight a bit next time. All right, here is your 30-day game plan. Go ahead and screenshot this right now. Step 1, pick your joint-specific exercise. Step 2, hold it under heavy, static tension for exactly 30 seconds. Step 3, do 3 sets of that, and do this routine twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. It's ridiculously simple, takes basically 0 time, and it feeds your tendons that exact creep signal they're literally starving for. Let's talk timeline. Within the first 1 to 2 weeks of doing this, twice a day, almost everyone feels a massive drop in pain. It feels amazing. But listen to Dr. Barr's ultimate warning here, because you need to take this seriously. Do not stop just because the pain fades away. A pain-free tendon is not a fully rebuilt tendon yet. To make this a permanent fix, you got to keep hitting these isometrics 3 or 4 times a week for at least 4 to 8 weeks. Once you're fully bulletproof, you can drop it down to just once a week or literally 5 minutes after a workout for long-term maintenance. So we totally flipped the script today. We learned that the standard medical advice to just rest damaged joints is actually making us weaker.
and that loading our injuries with heavy, static tension is the real medicine. Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to close on today. If complete rest actually makes tendon injuries worse, what other common sense fitness rules are silently sabotaging your longevity? Keep questioning everything, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.